We hope you've missed us because we've missed y'all, and it's another episode of Hot Fantasy Takes on the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. You may have heard of them before, but these Edmonton Oilers, they're for real, and our NHL coverage of every single team in the NHL rolls on into the Edmonton Oilers. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey season can't come fast enough, but in the meantime, you're tapped into your daily source for off-season news, fantasy takes, and everything in between. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele, wrote in on this side of the microphone. It's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Shout out to the everydayers. You know what it is. We couldn't be doing this without y'all. Much love for making us your first listen every single day. We're a little spotty here in the summer months, but we're still bringing 5 episodes a week. Just make sure you smash that subscribe button. Follow on Spotify, iTunes, Apple, wherever you're at for all of the latest. We're dropping episodes all summer long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. My friend, my brother, my co-host, Mr. Roden, it's been a little while since you and I have been on here chatting hockey, although off air, that seemingly never stops. You and I are never going to stop coming on here and trying to feed all of the followers, supporters, listeners what they need to get this money in the regular season. And I know it's mid-July and it's looking beautiful out there right now, but I'm already ready and I can't wait. I'm going to spit this out to hit the ice in a very big way. And look, we're rolling through every single team. So whether you like it or not, we got to talk about these Edmonton Oilers. And perhaps, Steele, this might be one of the more easy angles to cover in terms of the top 5. We're breaking down top 5 fantasy options on every single team in the NHL. Lots have been said about this Edmonton Oilers team. However, headed into next season, I got a couple of takes that I'm looking at. I got a couple of players that I really do think establish themselves as fantasy beasts. Number 1 on our list, number 2 on our list, and I'd say number 3 on our list are all locked in. So today's episode will be short and sweet. However, over to you, my friend. As always, the Edmonton Oilers were very, very close to being the best team in the NHL. They're Stanley Cup favorites, according to our friends at FanDuel, headed into this season. What do you think about this situation? Because obviously, McDavid 1, Draisaitl 2, Bouchard 3. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah, there will be no hot takes on this episode, and we try to enlighten everybody out there with some of our opinions, but I think everyone for the most part knows exactly what they're getting with these Edmonton Oilers, and you said it yourself. Number 1, number 2, number 3, it's locked in that exact order. Connor McDavid, of course, at the number 1 position for fantasy value from the Edmonton Oilers, not just from the Edmonton Oilers, but the entire NHL as well when it comes to fantasy leagues. He is going first overall in every single league. And if he slips down to 2 in yours, that's just a bonehead mood, whoever's drafting in that number 1. So that's not going to happen. But after a 100-assist season for Connor McDavid, 132 points, this is 4 straight seasons now for Connor McDavid with over 100-plus points in the NHL. It's absolutely astounding that he even had 105 points in that 56-game season during the COVID year.
True.
But he does it all. He really does. He's a playmaker at heart, but he knows how to score goals now. He knows how to score goals more frequently now. Continues to shoot the puck a lot. 263 shots on net last year. The physicality has taken an elevated portion of his game as well. 118 hits. We know what he does on the power play. Another savant on the power play. Another juggernaut power play.
You're loving that term savant these days.
I love the word savant right now. It's my word of the week. We'll go with that. So I'll try to come up with a new word every single week.
Next week,
kind of drop in every single episode. But we both know Connor McDavid number 1, and we both know Leon Draisaitl is going to be number 2. Both those players are first-round draft picks in your fantasy leagues. Connor McDavid obviously going number 1. And then Leon Draisaitl can really fall in between that 2 to 5 position because you've got Austin Matthews, you've got Cale Makar, you've got Nathan McKinnon, David Pastrnak Kucherov as well. Maybe the 2-7 position based on how players played last year. But Leon Draisaitl, if he gets outside of the top 5, you're going to be absolutely ecstatic. No matter who drafts him, you're going to be happy with that selection.
It's kind of interesting because obviously he struggled in the Stanley Cup final. He was banged up. I think one of the angles that keeps coming up when you and I talk about postseason and then headed into the fantasy draft season is sometimes good performances boost stock, bad performances hurt stock. And if you're basing it on Leon Draisaitl's Stanley Cup, you might think maybe he slides a couple. I don't think that's the case because this guy is just so good. And then you also add in 76 penalty minutes during the regular season. Only 217 shots on net for me, Steele, last year. You know me and the shot totals. That's shockingly low, especially when you look at some of the things that he's done in his career. 247 the year before, 278 the year before that. I don't think he slides at all. I think anything after this is how I'm running down my top 3. McDavid number 1, McKinnon number 2, and then 3, 4, and 5 we could have a conversation about, obviously.
100%.
However, McDavid's locked in at 1, Draisaitl's at 2, Bouchard's at 3. Let's talk about Bouchard in a second because I think at 1 and 2 on this team, those angles have all been covered ad nauseum. However, when you look at how this team got it done through the regular season and in the playoffs, special teams was absolutely sensational for this squad. And when it comes to capitalizing on fantasy value, these are the teams you got to be looking at because power play points in this elite level are very hard to come by. I'm excited to talk to you about Stuart Skinner a little bit later in the episode. Also going to talk about those 2 additions in Jeff Skinner. Now they got both the Skinners in the league and Victor Arvidsson. We'll get there in a second. Let's round it out with Evan Bouchard after the break. Let me just finish with this. Leon Draisaitl said some interesting things at the end of last season, Steele. He is headed into his last year, I believe, in his contract in Edmonton. Do I think they have everything it takes to run it back and actually even win the Stanley Cup? 100%, because Stuart Skinner will be one of those reasons, and we'll get there. But Leon Draisaitl, if for some reason it doesn't go well, Steele, and let's say they do even get bounced in the first or second round, because I think you and I will both agree they're a bona fide playoff stud.
Yep.
I'm going to be looking at this Edmonton Oilers team at this time next season. Things might not be nearly as pretty. Right now, everything's honky-dory happy because of the additions. If things don't go right, Steele, you and I are going to be having a very different conversation about this team headed into next season, and Leon Draisaitl will be at the forefront. But for now, absolute fantasy beast. I'm intrigued to hear what you have to say about the rest of those things that I teased up. If you have something to say, fire it off. If not, let's go to break nice and early. We're keeping today tight, and we'll talk about it after the break.
Yeah, we'll talk about it after the break. Evan Bouchard, we haven't even mentioned Zach Hyman and his fantasy value. So, I mean, the top 5 are pretty much locked up. Maybe just Stuart Skinner and Zach Hyman switch from 4 to 5. But we'll talk about that when we get there. But we'll talk about it after the break.
You know what it is, my friends. Shout out to everyone out there making us your first listen all summer long. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, 5-star review. You know the drill. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships, unlike the Edmonton Oilers, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts that fit your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, baby. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Motors, only available to our friends in the U.S.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you also go check out the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest and hottest sports stories without all the screaming from Fox Sports or ESPN. Locked On Sports brings you can't miss analysis, news, and opinion, streaming 24/7 on YouTube. You can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. The team that we talk about on today's episode are the Edmonton Oilers. Talking about the locked position of Evan Bouchard at number 3 off the charts, off the draft board from the Edmonton Oilers. But Evan Bouchard, again, I've talked very, very highly. I know a lot of people talk highly about Evan Bouchard after what he just did this past regular season in the postseason, but I've even put him in the same tier, maybe just right below what Cale Makar does fantasy-wise right now, especially with the players he's playing with and how he plays quarterbacking the power play. He gets so many power play assists. He has a rocket of a shot. He really knows how to get the puck through to the net. And that's the great thing about his game. It doesn't always have to be the one-timer. It doesn't always have to be the hard shot, but just getting the puck to the net. You never know what it's going to hit, where it's going to go. And he does that very, very greatly. So Evan Bouchard at number 3 for me, he's going to be a late 2nd round draft pick, early 3rd round draft pick. If he falls any below that, it's an absolute home run for your draft team because he's an absolute stud on the blue line and what he brings to the fantasy world for your team. I absolutely love Evan Bouchard. And again, at 24 years old, we're seeing his game elevated. And that's a big part of playing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. And a big part of it too, with Darnell Nurse not living up to his contract standards and living up to his big expectations, what the Oilers have.
So much monny for Darnell Nurse.
So much money for Darnell
doesn't
Nurse.
Make sense.
They gave the reins to Evan Bouchard, and he took full control of that. He now has full control of his destiny and his playing time and his opportunity in Edmonton. And I don't really see them giving it back over to Darnell Nurse anytime soon.
I totally agree. Here's my take here, first and foremost. Obviously, everyone out there has talked at length about what Mattias Ekholm has meant to the overall balance of this team and the blue line. But look at what it's meant being partnered with a guy like Evan Bouchard. Mattias Ekholm is your prototypical stay-at-home D-man who gets it done defensively. Yeah, maybe sometimes it's not his game, but if you can poke holes, you say a guy makes a lot of money, maybe he could chip in offensively, which he still does. However, that's not his game. And when you throw him in there with Evan Bouchard steal, and then you combine all of the things that factor into fantasy prominence, the power play, all of the offense up front. His D pairing, man, is a balanced defensive first blue liner. This just means amazing things for Evan Bouchard. Look, 2 seasons before this stepping out breakout season, we'll talk about perhaps a breakout candidate. I got 1 steal. I don't know if you're going to like it or not, but we'll talk about it. 82 points from 40 and 43 the year before. You might say after those first 2 seasons of only 40 points that it's going to be hard for Evan Bouchard to replicate 80 points. I really don't think so. And
it's not going to be hard.
Zach Hyman scored 50 plus goals. To me, very hard to replicate. Can Hyman still score 30 or 35 and still bring a ton of fantasy value? Most definitely. But he ain't popping another 50 piece. That's not happening. Whereas with Evan Bouchard, I'm comfortable projecting 85 to 90 points, no problem. All of the power play metrics that he hit and then some. He's 5th in Norris voting. I like to bring that up. 1, 2, 3 are locked in steal. Let's leave it at that. Yeah. Evan Bouchard, though, if it's not for Cale Makar, I would be comfortable saying he is the most valuable, at least offensively, D-man in the fantasy game out there. Most definitely. That's just how good Cale Makar is, though. I'm not stripping Cale Makar of that top fantasy D-man title just yet. 1, 2, 3, it's locked in. Who you looking at with number 4? Because I have Stuart Skinner there, but that's only because I'm expecting a slight regression in terms of overall numbers from Zach Hyman, and I'll spit it out now. With everything that I saw from Stuart Skinner steal, all the resiliency, Calvin Pickard taking his job there a little bit, almost permanently, and I know he bounced back. He's my breakout candidate. Maybe that's a easy take to expect in 36 wins. I don't know how much of a breakout it's going to be after that. However, I think you're going to see an amazing season from Stuart Skinner, and maybe that's just how I'm going to classify it.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be absolute studs no matter what. But just to finish off with Evan Bouchard, one last point on him. Going from 19 minutes of average ice time to 24 to 23 and a half. He gets an extra 4.5 minutes this past season. And again, that's, they gave him the reins. So, that's some big ice time and that's big opportunity for him. And that's why I agree with you that it's not going to be hard for him to replicate this. Getting that much time again, plus getting the first power play time, it's going to be absolutely huge for his fantasy value. So that's why he comes at number 3. He's going to be number 3 on most people's, should be number 3 on everyone's list moving forward. But at number 4, I actually have Zach Hyman. I understand why you have Stuart Skinner, and I'm not going to disagree with you at all because they could be interchangeable.
And you got Skinner at 5?
I have Skinner at 5. And it's funny to have Zach Hyman at number 4 in your case, number 5 in this position after a 50+ goal season.
Yeah.
But you hit it on the nail. Like, it's going to be very hard to replicate this. And he's never really been a playmaker besides last year. He had 47 assists with 36 goals in an 83-point season, which is still his career high. But then that clearly fell through a little bit with the playmaking ability, and he got a goal scoring touch. He was going to the front of the net. He was going and doing the dirty things that a lot of other players don't do, and that's why he succeeded so well with the Edmonton Oilers. This is also 3 straight seasons now of over 200+ shots. This is back-to-back seasons of actually 270+ shots.
Yeah.
He's shooting the puck a lot more. He's feeling great in Edmonton. They value what he brings to the table on a nightly basis. You're getting 110% from Zach Hyman every single game. He works like a horse out there. He digs and fights for the puck. He battles for his teammates out there. That's why he comes in at number 4. I also agree he's going to fall. He's going to regress in the goal scoring category. He's not going to get 50 again. I could see 40 or 40 plus just because of who he plays with and being on that power play unit, which is just an absolute juggernaut. And then in that case, I also see the assist kind of increase slightly as well. So I think he's going to fall somewhere again in that 70 to 75 point realm. He's going to fall down slightly from 77, but I see a 40 goal, 30 plus assist season for Zach Hyman this next year.
290 shots, like you said, in the regular season. He also led the NHL in postseason shots, 90 shots on net, led the NHL in 16 goals in the postseason too. And we're talking about the 5th most attractive option on a team for a guy doing that. I think that right there should tell you what this Edmonton Oilers team can do. And then they bring in a guy in Jeff Skinner, who is you want to talk about goal scoring savants. There's a savant right there. Let's talk about him and Victor Arvidsson around the break. I said Stuart Skinner breakout. Maybe that's difficult considering how many wins he had last year. And for me, a breakout means like you're far surpassing what you did in the previous season. And hey, maybe 45 wins is in the question. Think about how slow they started, Steele.
Yeah.
If that slow start of 2-9 and whatever it was even turns it around and they win 5 or 6 more games, Stuart Skinner will get 40 plus wins next year. I'm not going to say with ease, but very much within his realm. However, let's talk about their ability to run it back. The other teams around them, Victor Arvidsson, Mr. Other Skinner, Jeff, and what this means for this team's success and fantasy value right around the break, my friend.
And where you can buy some Edmonton Oilers tickets for next season, it's from Game Time. This episode is brought to you by Game Time as well. You shouldn't have to worry when buying your tickets to your next big event. That's why Flip and I, we always use the Game Time app. Game Time is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Going to a Toronto Blue Jays game has never been easier for all those baseball fans in Toronto. With killer last-minute flash deals, zone deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guaranteed. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. Save even more with its exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning, all the time throughout this offseason and through the entire NHL season. We love you out there. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in for this Saturday special episode. Flint, I know we talked about it, but at number 5, I have Stuart Skinner. At number 5, you have Zach Hyman. And again, we can't disagree with each other because of what they bring to this team. And they are interchangeable based on the potential of what Stuart Skinner can do next year and what we just saw from Zach Hyman. So no fault by any means. These are good. These are the top 5 Edmonton Oilers players you're going to be going out for.
And depending on the league, right? Maybe it makes more
depending
sense
on the league,
that you place more value on Stuart Skinner or vice versa. You know what it is. They're right there at 4 and 5.
But yeah, and you said it as well. I mean, this guy has 40-plus win capability. I still worry about the consistency of his game because even though he was pretty good in the playoffs, going from, you look at the statistics from games 1 through 3, and it was complete failure after complete failure. And then you look at the games from games 4 through 7, and he turns it on. He just turns on this switch that you don't really see often when in the regular season. Again, the inconsistency of the Edmonton Oilers goalies. I know they get rid of Jack Campbell now. They buy him out. He's in Detroit. It's Stuart Skinner in the crease. Calvin Picker backing him up. I agree with you. The potential is there for 40-plus goals. The only reason why I have it at number 5 is because of the inconsistency I see in his game still. And even throughout the playoffs, the inconsistency was there.
That's fair, Steele, for sure. I'm not going to come on here and disagree with facts. However, you could also look at that with a bit of a different lens. And hockey in that kind of pressure against the Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers, that's going to galvanize a young goaltender in a hurry. There's not much else that will build you a little bit of a backbone than playing against those teams. No disrespect to the LA Kings or Vancouver Canucks, but Cam Talbot, Dave Riddick, Artur Shilovs, that's not exactly an intimidating situation if you're a goaltender letting in muffins like he tends to do at times. Maybe it's a little less pressure-packed. However, Jake Ottinger, Sergei Bobrovsky, those two teams, and he showed he could do it against them as well. Then you factor in the moves that you and I are about to talk about, and I know it's just 2 guys, but now this team is even more balanced than before. That's going to mean good things for Stuart Skinner as well. However, Jeff Skinner, Victor Arvidsson, what are your takes here? Because number 1, Victor Arvidsson, I know you and I love this guy, but only 18 games played last season. At 31 years old now, injuries are starting to become a factor. He hasn't played a full season of NHL hockey in his entire career. Never hit the 82-game mark, Steele. And yeah, me and the numbers, I double-checked that one. It's a factor for this player, but when he is on the ice and healthy, 61 points in 2017, 61 points again in 2018. 2 years ago, 59 points. When he's healthy, he's a 60-point player. He can do a little bit of everything, and he's going to add a little wrinkle on that second line along with Jeff Skinner. That maybe not Victor Arvidsson, and hit me with your take on this, because I am a little bit wary about all those injuries. I'm looking at Jeff Skinner as a very sneaky, good fantasy option. Peripheral categories, no, you're not going there for this player. However, if he gets a look on the top power play, perhaps, I don't know how that shakes out, or even the secondary, which he will, Jeff Skinner becomes, for me, a must-add option in the middle to late rounds of every single draft, regardless of format, because when you play with Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, and now our boy Bouchard, it doesn't really matter what you have done before, but Jeff Skinner, I'm going to say Stuart Skinner and Jeff Skinner. This is going to be tough for you and I all year now. Thanks a lot, Ken Holland. When you have a guy in Skinner, Jeff, who can score goals like he can, Steele, I'm taking a look at this situation all day long. And if you're a fantasy GM out there looking to fill out your roster with a little bit of offensive bump, this is going to be one of your guys.
Yeah, and just to touch base on Victor Arvidsson, you and I both talk about this guy a lot when we do our Monday waiver wire targets and players to pick up on.
Waiver wire darling
Indeed. But when he's healthy, you said it, he's a 60-point player. He's a 200-plus shot player as well when he's healthy. He's done it multiple times over the last few seasons or throughout his career. Same goes for Jeff Skinner. I would be leaning more towards Jeff Skinner than Victor Arvidsson because of the injury concerns that are there with him over the last 3 years. And it's funny again that we haven't even mentioned Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and what
Right.
he brings to the fantasy value
Right.
world. I think that's the bigger conversation to have
Sure.
is
Sure.
would you rather have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins or Jeff Skinner? Because,
Oh, Nuge,
you know,
my opinion.
Nuge, honestly, more likely just because of that first power play he's going to be getting over Jeff Skinner. But I mean, Jeff Skinner, with that scoring touch that we've seen him have multiple times throughout his career, 35 goals the year prior, 33 the year before that. He had a 40-goal season a couple of years ago. His first year with the Buffalo Sabres, he's been in that 60-point realm multiple times throughout his career. I know Nugent-Hopkins goes from 104 points to 67, and you even hit that right on the nose as well, that he's going to have a dramatic fall off from that 100-plus point year. I think Ryan Nugent-Hopkins is obviously above Jeff Skinner because of the first power play unit deployment he's going to be getting. But Jeff Skinner,
Yeah, he's a better player.
I'm really excited for what Jeff Skinner is going to bring to the table right now, because they get him at an unreal deal of $3 million. He's playing now with Leon Draisaitl and Victor Arvidsson. Again, they could mix and match these lineups. He could be playing on that left side wing with Connor McDavid and Zach Hyman.
Yes, sir.
No question. So there's going to be a lot of rotations, I think, and they're going to mix some players around off the bat, maybe just to see who plays well with who, especially with Jeff Skinner and Arvidsson being the new guys in the team now. But I really do like what Jeff Skinner's potential brings with this Edmonton Oilers and what his fantasy value brings this upcoming season.
And when you factor in the Edmonton Oilers, were obviously sensational in the postseason on both the penalty kill and power play. But Jeff Skinner with the man advantage, with Connor McDavid feeding him the puck, this guy has a little bit of a one-dimensional type game, but perhaps he has never been in a better setting to capitalize on that dimension of his game by getting the puck fed to him by the best player on the planet, and arguably, we're not going to talk about accolades, statistics, or titles, because obviously those belong to Wayne Gretzky, Lemieux, and otherwise. But if you want to talk about the best hockey player to ever lace them up, that could easily be Connor McDavid. And when you have a guy like Jeff Skinner who has the tendency to just sit there and bury pucks, it could be huge, Steele. They had the fourth best power play in the league last year at 26% in the regular season. Only the Rangers, Bolts, and Canes were better. I expect them to be even better next season on the power play and the penalty kill. Knobloch behind the bench now for a full offseason. This guy knows what he's doing, Steele. He's moving his way into one of my favorite coaches in the league, up there with the guys that I like to talk about, Rod Brindamore, Paul Maurice, and others. He's not there yet, but if he keeps pulling chess pieces like he did in the postseason and to turn this team around, baby, he's going to have a Jack Adams on his mantelpiece, potentially along with a Stanley Cup next season. Who knows? But Steele and I will be here to break it all down for y'all all summer long. We're not stopping. And if you missed any of our teams so far, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, hit the channel. You'll find it all summer long.
All summer long. And just to end with this is almost an absolute lock, an absolute shoe-in for Jeff Skinner to finally make the postseason for the first time in his career. So that might have been very enticing for him also to go to the Edmonton Oilers, who also just made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. But we'll talk about all of this and more throughout the entire offseason. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Today's YouTube channel. You can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Everyone out there, have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. Good luck with your bets this summer, and we shall see you back here again on Monday.